Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into an absolutely sprawling history today. The region we now call Odisha on India's eastern coast was once known by a name that just screams ancient power.
Kalinga.
Kalinga, exactly. We're looking at a history that goes back over 5,000 years, full of competing empires, shifting identities. It's a lot, and the research you shared with us is wonderfully complex.
It is. And the first thing you notice is that we're not talking about one single stable kingdom that just existed for centuries. It's a place that was constantly, redefining itself.
Both geographically and politically.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to try and synthesize all of that complexity. We're going from foundational texts like the Puranas all the way to physical evidence like punch-marked coins.
And the goal is to see how the powerful ancient Kalinga Empire eventually becomes the modern state of Odisha.
Exactly. We're looking for those aha moments that really anchor the timeline for you.
And the first anchor point, I think, has to be the names. I was surprised by just how many names this region has had over the centuries.
That shifting identity is the first big insight. It's not just about different rulers. It's about what part of the map they controlled.
So how do we organize them?
Well, I think you can group them into, let's say, 3 buckets. First, you have the foundational name.
That's Kalinga itself?
That's Kalinga, the prehistoric name, the ancient empire. According to the Puranas and the Mahabharata, it was named after a Prince Kalinga. So that's our mythical starting point.
Okay, so that's bucket one. What's the second?
The second would be the regional splits.
Yeah.
Names that define a specific geographic piece of the whole. The Mahabharata, for instance, also mentions Utkala.
And Utkala was Northern Kalinga.
Generally referred to as Northern Kalinga, yeah. You get names tied to the people living there, like Odra or Udra. That's from the Odra tribe and their land, Uttradesa.
And that's the direct link to the modern identity, right?
Precisely. Odra is the root of the modern name, Odia. So it's one of the most enduring names on the map.
So what's the third bucket?
That would be the administrative and temporary boundaries, the names that reflect political need at a specific time. For example, Toshala.
Toshala was a city subdivision during the Ashoka period.
Exactly, a crucial one. And you see even more localized terms like Kongoda, which pops up on a copper plate in the Ganjam district.
And then there's Trikalinga, the 3 Kalingas.
Right, which seems to be a political grouping of Kalinga, South Kosala, and Kongoda. There's even a poetic one, Kamalamagdala, the Lotus regions, for an area in Kalahandi.
So the big takeaway here is that this was never a place with one single static border.
Never. It was a fluid, contested space. And that's why we need so many different kinds of evidence to actually trace its history.
Which is the perfect transition. Let's talk about that evidence, because it isn't just one royal chronicle. It's this incredible blend of literature, foreign accounts, and archaeology.
And you need all 3. The literary sources, they anchor the oldest parts of the timeline. I mean, we're finding references way back in the Mahabharata and the Ramayana.
And it's important to note this isn't just recorded in Hindu texts.
Not at all. Jain and Buddhist texts, like the Avasaka Niryukti and the Digha Nikaya, have these crucial descriptions of both Kalinga and Utkala. So you get an outside perspective, which is often very critical.
And beyond the epics, you have the political stuff, like Kautilya's Arthashastra and the Puranas.
The Vayu, Matsya, Vishnu Puranas. They give us ideas about society, about the lines of legendary kings.
But then you have the accounts from even further away, the Greek and Chinese observers. What do they tell us?
They confirm that Kalinga was a major player. The Greek historian Megasthenes, for example, talks about the powerful people of Kalinga in his work, Indiga.
And Pliny goes even further. He actually divides it up.
He does. He divides Kalinga into 3 distinct divisions, Gangetic, Middle, and Kalinga proper. That tells you a lot about its size and, its internal structure, even before the big imperial conflicts.
Then fast forward a few centuries, and you get the Chinese pilgrim Xuanzang visiting around 638 AD.
His perspective is priceless because he's not focused on war. He's talking about the religious and social conditions. He specifically mentions the regions of Odra and Vusha.
So the written accounts give us the context, but it's the archaeology that really brings it to life, gives us hard dates and names.
Absolutely. The tangible evidence.
When it comes to inscriptions, what are the big ones we rely on?
Well, you have to start with the Asokan edicts at Dauli and Jalgada. They're foundational for understanding how the Mauryan Empire tried to govern Kalinga after the war.
And for the period after the Mauryas fell.
Then you absolutely need the Hathagampa inscription at Udayagiri. It's basically the biography of the great post-Mauryan ruler Caravella. It's our primary source for his entire reign.
And beyond inscriptions, you've got these massive Buddhist archaeological sites, the Diamond Triangle.
Right, that's the two sides of Udayagiri and Lalitgiri, plus the huge excavation at Ratnagiri.
And what did they find there?
Massive stupas, monasteries, incredible art. It shows that even when the political situation was chaotic after the Mauryas, religious and cultural life was just flourishing.
And we can't forget the coins. They're like these little portable records of trade and who was in charge.
They are. The earliest are the punch-marked coins from the 4th and 5th century BC. They have these simple symbols, a sun, an animal.
Then you start to see outside influence, right? Like the Gupta archer type gold coins.
Exactly. Found in places like Engul. They show the reach of neighboring empires. But for me, the most interesting ones are sometimes the weirdest ones, like the Nala coins.
What's so peculiar about the Nala coins?
Well, the reverse side is totally blank.
Blank.
Completely blank. The front has a humped bull and the king's name in this box-headed script. But the blank reverse it's a statement.
What kind of statement?
It suggests a kind of deliberate localism, a nonconformity. They weren't just copying the big imperial styles of the day. They were forging their own distinct identity, even in their coinage.
That desire for local distinction is a perfect setup for the next part of the story. Let's move from the evidence to the action, to the dynastic era, starting with the first major outside force to conquer Kalinga.
The Nandas.
The Nandas.
Kalinga's independence was always being threatened by its huge neighbor, Magadha. And the sources are clear that it was Mahapadmananda who finally conquered Kalinga and pulled it into his massive empire around 350 BC.
So for a time, Kalinga was just a province.
Just a province.
But the Nanda rule didn't last long. When Chandragupta Maurya crushes the Nandas in 322 BCE, Kalinga sees its chance.
They grab their independence back. But that freedom sets the stage for what is arguably the single most transformative event in ancient Indian history.
The Kalinga War, 261 BC.
A conflict so massive, so bloody, that it literally broke the will of the conqueror. The scale of the suffering. It's almost unimaginable. Mass killing, injuries, and then the disease that always follows.
But the real so what of the war is what happened to Emperor Ashoka, his personal transformation.
His 13th Rock Edict is just one of the most powerful political documents ever written. It details this profound shift. The sources say the violence just shattered him. He renounces war, adopts Buddhism, and completely pivots his style of governance.
And that pivot had a direct impact on Kalinga's administration.
A huge impact. After the conquest, Kalinga was annexed, but Ashoka didn't rule with an iron fist. He made Tosali the capital and set up a very specialized bureaucracy.
He didn't just appoint normal ministers. He had these Antamahamatras and Dharmahamatras.
Exactly. And the Dharmahamatras, they weren't your typical administrators.
That was their job, exactly.
They were essentially ministers of morality. Their specific job was to look after the welfare and the ethical development of the people, to promote nonviolence. It was a government driven by a ruler's guilt.
An incredible shift. But the Mauryan Empire eventually faded, and Kalinga didn't stay down for long. We see a powerful resurgence from within.
That's where the Mahameghavana dynasty, or the Chedi dynasty, comes in. This is in the second half of the 1st century BC. They are crucial because they restore Kalinga's prestige. And their most important ruler was Kharavela.
And the Hatha inscription tells us he wasn't just a warrior king.
Far from it. It paints this picture of a multi-talented leader, a great builder, a patron of music and dance, but also a brilliant military commander who successfully invaded the powerful Satavahana kingdom.
So he really defined Kalinga's classical revival.
He did. He put Kalinga back on the map as a dominant power in eastern India.
But that power dynamic just keeps shifting. We fast forward to the mid-4th century AD, and the Gupta dynasty is rising, and the sources say that under them, the region fragments. A lot.
It does, and this fragmentation is vital. It's what sets the map for medieval Odisha. As the Guptas assert their power, Kalinga basically shatters into smaller, independent kingdoms.
We know from the Allahabad pillar inscription there were 4 main ones, right? Katura, Aranapali,
Devarashtra, and Pishtapura, exactly. And this leads to this period of intense local competition.
All these sub-regional kingdoms pop up.
They do. And they each start carving out their own little cultural zone. You have the Matharas, who ruled the Kalinga region proper in the 4th and 5th centuries. They're known for being big patrons of Sanskrit literature.
And what about the Nalas? We talked about their coins.
The Nala dynasty sets up shop further inland, in the Trikalinga region, so modern Koraput and Kalahandi. They were followers of Vaishnavism.
So all these little kingdoms, the Matharas, the Nalas, They're like the building blocks.
They are the building blocks. They spent centuries strengthening their own regional identities, language, religion, art, that would all eventually have to be unified to create the larger Odia identity we know today.
Okay, let's turn the page on that period and enter the early medieval era. Here's where it gets really interesting. We hit the Bhamakara dynasty in the early 8th century.
The Bomakaras are incredibly important. They ruled the coastal belt, and for a few reasons. But one feature is just. It's stunningly unique in Indian history.
The queens.
The successful reign of several queens. They governed, and governed well, not just as temporary regents, but as rulers in their own right, right after their husbands died. And they maintained incredible stability.
These matriarchs are a real historical anomaly. Who were some of the key rulers?
Well, Tribhuvana Mahadevi I was the first known woman ruler around 845 AD. Then later you see Gauri Mahadevi, who skillfully kept law and order. Her daughter, Dandi Mahadevi, secured the kingdom's borders.
So this wasn't some fragile, unstable period.
Not at all. During this period of female leadership, we see robust trade flourishing with Ceylon, China, all of Southeast Asia. It was a stable and prosperous time.
What an incredible legacy. This brings us then to the final dynasty in our deep dive, the one that finally managed to pull all those different pieces back together.
That would be the Somavamsi dynasty, established around the middle of the 10th century AD, and their importance just can't be overstated.
Because they finally unified Kalinga, Utkala, Kongoda, and Kasala.
They brought it all under one political authority. They created the territorial foundation for the modern state.
And they left behind a pretty impressive physical legacy, too.
Oh, absolutely. Their reign was critical for Odia culture and architecture. They're the ones who started construction on the magnificent Lingaraj temple at Bhubaneswar.
Which was completed around 1040-1065 AD, a real landmark.
It marked the dawn of a new, unified identity.
Wow. So this deep dive has really shown us that the history of Odisha is a story of transformation. It's not static at all. We started with Kalinga, but found the identity was always fluid, Utkala Odradesa, a constant dance between breaking apart and coming together. We saw the huge spiritual impact of the Kalinga War on Ashoka, and this incredible, surprising stability and success under the Bhamakara queens.
And if you connect that whole narrative of constant flux to the big picture, the sources really show that Odisha's singular composite identity was forged not despite all its smaller regions, Kosala, Toshala, Kongoda, but because of them. And this raises a really interesting question for you, the listener, to think about. Given that unifying the Trikalinga area was always the goal, how much did that long period of fragmentation, the localized rule of dynasties like Samatharas and Nalas, actually contribute to, rather than take away from, the rich, unique culture that defines Odisha today? It's a history where having many names, in the end, led to a much stronger final identity.